Nagumo is an ugly loser who is left to die after experiencing betrayal by his friends. In order to survive, he eats monsters and joins forces with a sexy vampire to gain overpowered skills, which aid him in getting his revenge. All of this began when Hajin lays down on the floor in the dungeon, trying to figure out if he is dead or alive. He assures himself that he is still alive and remembers how he has fallen into deep shit by falling into the Great Orcus Labyrinth. But he immediately stands up and he decides to get to the upper levels so as to get home safely. Shortly after, he sees a bunny, and while he wonders how such a cute creature would be in the dungeon, he suddenly witnesses how the cutie defeats two huge wolves trying to eat it. Nagumo leaves, but as the bunny sees him, it moves closer to him and ate, leaving him scared as he wets his pants when he sees the huge monster behind him. He watches how the huge-looking Bigfoot tears the little bunny and begins to eat it, and this makes Nagumo scream in horror as he begins to run for his life. But his happiness is short-lived as the huge monster uses its skills to cut off his left arm. The monster picks up Nagumo's arm and begins to eat it, and the monster also begins to chase him to have a taste of his delicious body. But Nagumo immediately uses his transmute skills to get away from the monster, and thus this makes him go deeper into the dungeon. Nagumo sees that he is out of danger, but his left arm would not stop bleeding, and this makes him become unconscious, and he passes out. Nagumo wakes up after a while and he suddenly sees a holy crystal above him, and he realizes that his arm still hits, but his major problem is hunger. He remembers all he has read about the formation of the holy crystal, and he also remembers how he cannot fight, but as he remembers the monster that ate his arm, he begins to cry as he laments on how he would not be able to fight and defeat it in order to go home. Nagumo gets a flashback of when he and his classmates entered the dungeon, and he was about to be eaten by a monster, but was saved by Amanagawa. One of his classmates, called Hiyama, comes to make fun of Nagumo, but Karu, another of his classmates who might have a little crush on Nagumo, comes to ask if he is fine. The group suddenly sees a shiny crystal, and the captain leading the group, called Captain Nell, tells them that the crystal is called the Glands Crystal. But as Amanagawa touches the crystal, it teleports them back to the 65th floor of the labyrinth. The group suddenly realize that they f***ed up as they are faced by a huge number of monsters, but seeing this, Captain Meld tells them to move back and try not to show off their skills, as it would not be any match for the monsters. Captain Meld tries to protect the other members of the group, but he is unable to do so. A huge monster tries to attack the group, and as Nagumo sees that a huge boulder is about to fall on Kaori, who is dear to him, he immediately goes off like the superhero that he thinks he is, and he uses his skills to protect her, while he tells Captain Meld to take Kaori away from the boulder. Nagumo also adds that he would not be able to hold the monster down for a long time, and the captain promises him that they would rescue him once they are all saved. Captain Meld gets Kaori to safety, and he immediately tells the rest of the group that they should use their skills so that they would be able to rescue Nagumo. However, Nagumo recollects that as he is trying to run to safety, one of the blasts from the members of his groups suddenly hits him, and that makes him fall deep into the labyrinth. After his flashbacks, Nagum begins to cry as he asks himself who is to blame for what had happened to him, because Kaori had told him of a bad dream she had before they entered the labyrinth, and she had promised to protect him. But while in pains for his betrayal, he suddenly remembers the pain in his arm that got bitten off and also in his stomach. As he has not eaten for days, Nagumo decides to hunt for food, and he is able to trap some monster wolves, and when he eats them raw, he begins to feel weird, and he feels like the meat is eating him inside his stomach. Under the huge holy crystal, Nagumo falls down in pain after having his last supper. He immediately drinks the water dripping from the holy crystal, and unknown to him, his hair is turning white as he does. Few hours later, Nagumo becomes better, and he notices his hair. Then he decides to look at his status plate, and when he does, he realizes that he has gained some new skills from the monster he ate. Then he uses the lightning skills he got to fry the rest of the meat in order to eat it. He also uses the skill to make a revolver from a black hard rock called the Tor Stone, and he makes some bullets as well using the resources from the labyrinth like a mad scientist. Nagumo calls his gun Donner, then he tests Donner by using it to kill a monster honey, and after eating the bunny, he gets the powers of the bunny. Then he decides to go and visit the huge monster that is his arm. As he goes back a few meters to where his arm was eaten, he finds the monster, and after showing off his new skills, he also cuts off the monster's arm and chews it right in front of the monster. Before the monster is able to attack him, Nagumo immediately shoots it, and while feeling motivated, Nagumo decides to find his way home and kills anything that tries to stop him from going to his humble abode. Nagumo takes the monster meat back to his safe spot, and as he continues to beat the meat, he realizes that he is not getting any extra skills, but he gets more points. Then he decides to try to get home even though he does not know what floor he is. He walks down to another part of the labyrinth, but he suddenly sees a monster that uses its skill to put off his light, and he immediately goes back to the Holy Crystal as he is unable to find anything. Nagumo journeys deeper into the bottom of the abyss, and he is able to keep count of the monsters he has killed, but when he goes back to the Holy Crystal, he checks his stats and realizes that he had just been playing as it has not increased in any way. Meanwhile, the rest of the group reports back to the king and explains what had happened in the labyrinth, but the king gives them a strict order not to let a word go out that one of them had gotten missing in the labyrinth. Shizuku, who is also one of the meme beasts of Nagumo's group, begins to remember what had happened while they were trying to save him, but she feels sorry, and she goes to check up on Kori, who has been unconscious after realizing that they were not able to protect Nagumo. Shizuku also remembers how they were told to save the kingdom, but she also recollects how their teacher Miss Aiko begged them all not to go to the labyrinth. Shizuku begins to wonder what went wrong, but she gets distracted as she sees one of her classmates named Hayama, who also followed them to the labyrinth, but she hears him talking to himself like a mad fellow as he tries to calm down, because no one saw what he did. Shizuku calls Hayama, and he becomes startled, and he tells her that nothing is wrong with him, but when he leaves, Shizuku recollects that he is always picking up fights with Nagumo, and she discovers that he might actually like Kori, and because of that, he had intentionally directed his magic at Nagumo. Shizuku then assures herself that Hayama did not hurt Nagumo, but she immediately makes her way to where Kori has been laying unconscious, but she becomes excited when she sees that Kori is waking up. Kori tells Shizuku that she is feeling tired, and Shizuku replies that it is because she has been asleep for 5 days. Then Kori asks her what had happened, as she is unable to remember everything. She also asks if they were able to save Nagumo, but Shizuku tells her that they have lost Nagumo, and on hearing this, Kori becomes sad. Then Shizuku goes to meet her, but she tells her that she has to go and rescue Nagumo as he is all alone by himself. On the other hand, Nagumo continues his experiments, and when he sees a huge door with 2 huge statues, he decides to make more bullets as he tells himself that he does not know what is behind the doors, but he holds Donner and says his life pledge to kill anything that stands in his way of getting home. Nagumo checks out the door, and when he tries to use his transmute skill, he gets shocked literally as he falls back, but he begins to question his life choices when he realizes that the 2 statues are actually 2 huge one-eyed monsters guarding the door. One of the monsters tries to attack Nagumo, but he immediately gives the monster a dose of Donner's powers, and the monster falls dead immediately. The second monster uses a kind of defensive magic against Nagumo, and this makes him more interested in whatever is behind the door, but after playing with the monster, Nagumo is able to use his skills to trick the monster into a corner and ishikate it with style, thus feeling like a superhero. Meanwhile, Kori tells Shizuku a beautiful story of how she is sure Nagumo is alive, and she tells her that she would get stronger in order to go back to rescue him. Then she also asks for Shizuku's help in making her stronger, and Shizuku agrees to teach her into becoming strong to save their friend Nagumo. Nagumo realizes that the key to the door are the 2 orbs from the monster's chests, and when he takes the orbs, the door opens and Nagumo sees a beautiful room with a shiny huge cube suspending in the air. But when he moves further into the room, he hears a voice telling him to move closer to the cube, and when he does, he sees that there is someone in the middle of the cube. As he moves closer, he sees that the person is a young girl, but he decides to leave as he does not want to get involved in whatever she has to say. The girl immediately begs him to stay and help her, but he tells her that he does not want to save her because she must have been locked in the room on purpose. The girl immediately tells him that she was betrayed, and as Nagumo hears that, he feels like he and the girl have something in common. Then he decides to listen to what she has to say. Nagumo asks the girl why she is locked in a queue, and before she is able to answer, she stares at him because of his pets-like charm, and she begins to explain that she comes from a long line of vampires who are also extremely powerful, but she got betrayed by her uncle who wanted to rule, and when he saw that she cannot be killed, he got her sealed deep down in the labyrinth. Nagumo questions the girl further to ask her why she cannot be killed, and she explains to him that she heals quickly, and whenever she gets hurt, she heals faster than normal. She also adds that she can manipulate mana, without using a magic circle, and Nagumo becomes impressed at her powers, and he decides to help her. Nagumo suddenly begins to use his powers against the huge cube, and after applying lots of pressure and energy, he is able to break the seal and the girl falls down naked. Nagumo takes his holy water in which he had saved for his journey, and he suddenly sees that the girl holds his hands like they are lovers, but she thanks him for saving her life and asks for his name. He tells her his name, and when he asks for hers, she tells him to give her a new name as she does not want to use the old one she had before, but after thinking for a while, Nagumo names the girl Yu, and he tells her that it means the moon because her hair and eyes reminds him of the moon. Yu thanks Nagumo, and she hugs him by rubbing her bare body against him, but Nagumo suddenly senses an attack, and he immediately uses himself as a human shield for Yu, and she calls on him as she sees that he has been hit by some spears made from rock. Nagumo tells Yu that he let his guard down, and he immediately pours the crystal water he has on his wounds as Yu helps him to pull the spears out. He looks up and sees a huge crab-like looking monster, then he tells Yu that the monster is there to make sure she does not escape from her bondage. Nagumo looks at Yu, and for the first time he realizes that she is naked. At this moment, he immediately gives her one of his coats to wear, and she calls him an uncultured swine. Nagumo tells Yu to hop on his back, and he immediately faces the monster to tell it that he would kill and eat its meat. With Yu on his back, Nagumo begins to attack the huge crab monster by using Donner with his skills, but after a while, he sees that he is unable to pierce through the monster's skin, then he stays in a safe space to re-strategize. Suddenly, Yu gets down from his back, and before he is able to ask her what she wants to do, she immediately begins to bite his neck and suck his blood like a juice box. Nagumo continues to use his skills to guide them both from the monsters, and when Yu finishes, she tells him that his blood is delicious. She immediately goes in front of the monster and uses a special kind of high-level magic called the Azure Blade on the monster. Nagumo becomes surprised, and he asks her if she can do it again, and she tells him that she would try. He decides to plan and tells her to cast the magic on the monster again after seeing his signal. The following morning, the two set to continue their journey, and as they do so, they walk for days, and when they get to the 100th level, Yu notices Nagumo, and she asks him why he's being extra careful, and he replies her that it is the 100th level, and they do not know what is in store for them. Soon they come across a door which is looking like the door leading to death or paradise, but Nagumo tells Yu that she should be on alert, as they do not know what is behind the door. They enter the door, and they both agreed that they are in the Mavericks lair because of how beautiful it is constructed, but Yu immediately tells Nagumo that they would fight against any monster in their way. Yu spoke too soon, and they suddenly become faced by the boss of the level, which turns out to be a six-headed monster with different colors. The two begin to feel like superheroes as the monster attacks them, and they both put their skills to defeat the monster, but after hitting the monster, they realize that the monster is able to heal itself. They also realize that the heads are responsible for different combat skills like defending, attacking, and healing, amongst other skills. They continue to fight, and as Yu tries to defeat the monster, one of its heads lures her into looking at its eyes, and when she does, she sees herself trapped in the cube as before, but this time, Nagumo leaves her alone, and she begins to cry. Nagumo hears Yu's voice, and when he turns to look, he sees that the monster is trying to kill her with its skills. He immediately runs to go and rescue her. Then he distracts the monster by throwing a grenade at it. Nagumo builds a wall of rocks to protect them from the attacks of the monster, and when he sees how unconscious Yu is, he immediately gives her the holy water, and she wakes up. Then she begins to tell him of how she thought he would leave her alone, but he tells her that they would both survive the labyrinth and go home. Nagumo looks at how cute Yu is, and he immediately gives her a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and this makes her shocked as she was not expecting a kiss from Nagumo. After sharing some salute fluid with Yu, Nagumo becomes a motivational speaker, and he tells Yu how they would defeat the monster together in order to go home. Then they not resume fighting with the monsters, and after a while, the monster tries to trick Yu into her past, but she remembers the kiss with Nagumo, and she immediately regains herself back. After a few minutes, Nagumo uses Shklajanin on the monster, and when he finishes, he notices how exhausted Yu is and how the monster is trying to launch an attack on her. He immediately goes to save her from the monster's attack, even though he knows he is doomed to be barbecued. Nagumo falls unconscious, and Yu takes him to a safe place away from the monster, and she begins to cry as he is losing a lot of blood. She immediately puts the holy water in her mouth, and she feeds it to him.
Oh my God! Wow!
But when she sees that he is not conscious, she becomes determined to save him because he has been looking out for her since he rescued her. She immediately picks up Donner and tries to take on the monster by herself, and when she begins to fight with the monster, which smells like death, she tries all of her skills, but the monster is too strong for her to handle alone. The monster hits her and she falls down tired. Then she begins to say her goodbyes to Nagumo as she begs for his forgiveness, because she is unable to save home by defeating the monster. Suddenly, like one with a spider sense, Nagumo wakes up and begins to continue the fight with the monster, and after using a trick he devised while lying unconscious, he is able to defeat the monster by himself just because he had gotten angry when he heard Yu crying about not defeating the monster for him. After defeating the monster, Nagumo falls down and he tells Yu that he had used all his strength to defeat the monster. Then she commends him for a job well done, and he also tells her that she had done well herself, but the two laid down to rest for a while before continuing their journey. On the other hand, Lady Eiko, who is the teacher of Nagumo's school, goes to meet the man who called them, and she begins to rant at him for sending the students to the labyrinth after seeing one of their classmates dead. She explains to him that the students need time to grieve over their loss, but the man tells her that he understands her. Then she tells him that she would not work on their farms again if he does not listen to her. On hearing this, the man immediately tells her that he promises that any student who refuses to fight would not be forced to, and this makes Lady Eiko calm a little bit. She thanks him and leaves, but she tells herself that she would protect the interest of her students more. Meanwhile, the students return to the labyrinth and Kori sees the place Nagumo had fallen before, but Shizuki goes to meet her to cheer her up, and she tells her that she is okay. Then Amenogawa begins to tell her that she should not let the death of her classmate weigh her down. Two other girls named Eri and Suzu try to tell Kori that they would be there for her as friends, and she thanks them for their support before Amenogawa tells them that they should continue their journey. Nagumo suddenly wakes up, and he finds himself on a bed in a beautiful place covered up with white sheets, but he realizes that he has lost an eye, and he also notices that he is naked, and when he sees Yu beside him who is naked, he becomes shocked and begins to wake her up. Yu wakes up and she becomes excited as she sees that he is okay, and he immediately apologizes to her as he tells her that she must have gotten worried. Nagumo asks Yu what had happened after they got the six-headed monster cooked, and she replies that the huge door opened, and they found the place which had belonged to the Mavericks, but she gave him the holy water, and when it started to work, she also had to rest because she got tired. He then thanks her for helping him, but he sits up and decides to interrogate her on why he is naked, and she immediately told him that they were both dirty, and she cleaned his body for him. Yu begins to lick her lips as she talks about cleaning Nagumo's body, and he wonders why she is acting like a hoe. Then they both begin to look through the clothes Yu found, and she also tells him that she did not only find the clothes but also an abandoned house. The two wear some clothes and they begin to explore the mansion like tourists, but before entering the house, Nagumo tells Yu to be alert as they do not know what is in the house. They find a fine bath and Nagumo imagines having to take a bath alone, but Yu asks him if he would like to take a bath with her, and he refuses, which makes her angry. After checking some floors in the mansion, they realize that some of the rooms are sealed by a special type of magic that cannot be breached by Nagumo's transmute skills, but they continue the journey to the third floor and find a wide room with a throne in it, and when they look closer, they see the skeleton of a man who appears to be a king. They notice a magic circle in the middle of the room, and Nagumo tells Yu that the man might have been waiting for someone, but he also adds that she should help him if anything goes wrong, because he thinks that the room is the key to finding the route to the surface. Nagumo enters the magic circle and becomes activated. Then he begins to feel weird as if his brain is being fried, but he suddenly sees a recording of the dead man. The man begins to give him a message as he directs the message to anyone who found the mansion. Then he tells Nagumo that he is the man who built the labyrinth, and he wants to share the reasons why he has been painted as the man who wants to destroy the world. Meanwhile, the students and the guards who are in the labyrinth get to a floor, and they are faced by the behemoth, which was the same monster that based the monster, and defeat it for good. On Amenagawa's orders, the students begin to behave like the super hairsling's been printed into his brain like calligraphy, and he also adds that the people they thought were the bad guys are not bad. Later that night, Nagumo takes a bath, and while he enjoyed his me time, Yu comes into the bath naked, but he tries to explain to her, and she immediately stands in front of him by showing him her tiny-looking melons and her suck on some petit melons.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
A few days later, Nagumo makes an eye house to see that they have nice rides like motorbikes and some cars. After 2 months of preparation, he adds that they might be targeted by some godly beings as well, but he recites their anthem of defeating anything or any told him to do the dreams he had and how she promised to protect him then, to the labyrinth where he got betrayed, and how he had felt along the way. He realizes that he had suffered a lot right from being a normal teenager to being a synergist and having to survive by eating monster meat as food. He feels less lonely after meeting you, and he creates a strong bond with her, as she is the only one he had apart from his friends who had abandoned. But he loses his eye to a 6-headed monster and finds a mansion with more goodies for himself and you. However, a young and beautiful beast girl stays alone in a deserted place, and she begins to wait for her bells that her visitors have arrived. Suddenly, the bunny girl becomes shocked as she sees Nagumo monster chasing her has been defeated. Then she decides to go and have a conversation with them. Towards them, but the stupid bunny girl is unable to catch up with them as they walk away like some important people. Insists that they help her, but Yu begins to pull her ears and eventually pulls her off Nagumo's body. Then another 2-headed dinosaur-looking monster suddenly starts making its way towards them. Seeing this, the bunny girl tells them to run for their lives, but since they are proud lowlifes, they decide to remain there and not even tremble for fear of the monster. At that moment, Nagumo takes out his guns and shoots the monster dead, which when the bunny girl sees this, she is very surprised and she continues to beg Nagumo for help, but instead he pushes her away. The bunny girl then introduces herself as she, and she tells them that she is the eldest daughter of the Hoff with his gun. He tells her that he would hear her out, but while getting excited, she thanks Nagumo and wipes her tears with his coat. Nagumo becomes angry and he yells at her for wiping her face in his coat. Then he immediately hits Shia, who yells at him asking him why he is hitting her even with her beauty. Nagumo gets angry and he tells her, and he turns away while she continues to ask him why he is blushing but unknown to her. The tiny melon Yu stands behind her fuming with anger. She sees Yu, and at that moment she knew she f***ed up, and she asks where tried were exiled, and she also tells him about some of her skills and powers of being able to see the future. She begins to beg Nagumo, and he tells her that he is not getting anything in return, and he does not want to stress him. She decides to follow them to the Sea of Great Trees if they agree to help her, and Yu also tells Nagumo that they should take her along as it would be nice for them to have a guide. On getting to the village, Nagumo kills a huge flying beast that is trying to eat a little child, and when she sees her people, she tells them that she had gone to look for help, but Nagumo tells she that he would use her as bait for the flying beasts. The air, in order to lure the flying beasts while he finishes them off with Donner, his reliable sidekick. They had left their hometown because she had been destined to be killed by one of the beast men, and in order to protect her, her parents with some other people of Halia left their hometown to settle in another place. Nagumo and Yu also helped Shi to other beast men so that they would not hunt them down again, and later that night, the people of Halia are able to sleep peacefully thanks to their superheroes Nagumo and Yu. She tells Nagumo how she has never seen her people sleeping peacefully. Then she thanks them for listening to her. But she asks Nagumo and Yev that they want to become stronger like them, and Yu agrees to have a duel with Shi so as to decide if she can follow them or not, while Nagumo goes to talk to the other people that they have to kill the monsters hunting them or get killed. After a few minutes of fighting, Yu defeats Shi, but she is able to see that she had given Yu a scratch on her cheek, and she immediately points it out to Yu, who immediately heals herself and denies getting hit by her. He asks her why she really wants to follow them, and she confesses that she is in love with him, and she wants to be with him. He keeps quiet, and she tells him that her feelings have won against his hard heart. Nagumo and Yu begin to listen to the voice again and wonder what it is. They then try to destroy the stone tablet, thinking that the voice will go away, but the voice tells them that the stone tablets can regenerate after a while. Yu tries to use her projectile magic, but she is greatly disappointed as she notices that she cannot use as they have been to that room beginning, and this gets them angry at Melody, who is the voice that has been talking to them. Back at the town away from the labyrinth, Yuka begins to feel worried about sitting and not doing anything, and she plans to go with Aiko on her expedition. They try to convince her to calm down, but she tells them that she cannot just sit down doing nothing like a lazy bone, and she has to do something. She also tells them how bad she could go with him since Nagumo had met Hades while trying to save them, and she tells them that he accomplished it by saving them. Labyrinth, Nagumo and the others just finish from a door, and Nagumo sees that they have arrived at My Lady's Hair, and they see that there are a lot of giant statues there. Nagumo begins to look at them and tells them that he has a bad feeling about the suits of armor, and he begins to feel threatened in a way. Nagumo then urges Shi to go in as he promises to protect her if anything happens. She listens and they all begin to attack the giants in armor suits. The bunny sees that she is being attacked by a large number of the giants, but sees that she is saved by Yu, who in turn informs her that carelessness will get her killed, and it is 3 times the punishment. Nagumo continues to fire his pistol at them, and he sees that there is no end to the giants as he sees that they keep attacking. They suddenly open a door and Nagumo orders them all to jump so that they can evade the giants, and they see that they have landed on a box that takes them to see Milady. They immediately see that she is huge and that they are about to face the boss.
It's about to go down.
Nagumo begins to wonder who it is as he reads in Orcus notes that Milady is dead, but she becomes surprised as they are the ones who made it to Ochan's labyrinth. Nagumo immediately shuts her up as he begins to feel like a boss himself and tells her that they have come to place their hand on some ancient magic, and Milady tells them that she is telling the truth about her identity. Milady also asks them why they need the ancient magic, and Nagumo replies to her saying that he needs to get home and her insane god forced him to get to where he is. He tells her that he is looking for an ancient magic that can allow him to jump between worlds, but Milady tells him that she is not giving him any information and Nagumo begins to attack her. He informs his team to destroy her core as it is basically her heart. They begin to give a series of attacks to Milady and begin to wonder if it truly worked on her, and they begin to devise another strategy of attack to use on her. Milady then arrives and launches her own attack on them and asks them if they could survive it, and she sees the huge chaos she has caused and concludes that they could not handle it. She becomes surprised as she hears the voice of Nagumo from behind her, and she sees that she had been tricked and sees that they have managed to pierce through her armor after she thinks that Nagumo will not be able to. After they manage to bring her down, Yu traps her in an ice coffin, allowing Nagumo to plant a spear in her armor. Milady begins to laugh, thinking that was the end, not knowing that Nagumo still has a final move. He immediately orders Shi to use her hammer to hit the spear that is supposed to hit her core and kill her, making Milady scream and shut down. Yu tells Shi to kneel down for her, and she begins to pet her head since Nagumo will not. They begin to have a good time together, but they see that Milady has used some part of her power to talk to them, and they begin to wonder how, seeing that they destroyed her core. She tells them that she just wants to give them a warning, and she bids them farewell as she departs from the body of the robot, and they all begin to leave. Suddenly, they see her again in a canteen, and they become more annoyed, and she uses her hammer to hit her on the head. Milady immediately offers them gravity magic after the attack and specifies how they use it. She immediately gets angry after seeing that Nagumo has taken more treasure from her, and she immediately uses her powers to flood the room and wishes them luck in other labyrinths. Yu begins to feel weird about it. She immediately wakes up and begins to kiss him, and Nagumo becomes angry and throws her back into the river to drown. They immediately arrive at an inn, and they begin to argue on the number of rooms they can take, and they all insist on taking a room with Nagumo. Nagumo remains silent, and immediately he hears Shia talking about allowing him take her virginity, but he becomes silent for a while and takes his gun to shoot her. Nagumo goes to see Ilwer, and he tells him that he has been looking for coming to see him. On their way out, Yu notices that she is sleeping, and she begins to see the reason why she has been very quiet. Nagumo begins to think about the task given to them by Ilwer on finding a missing person and how important the Count is to him. Nagumo also gives him 2 conditions if he truly wants the Count. Ilwer agrees to the deal, and Nagumo becomes happy seeing that he has made a very smart move in making Ilwer begins to tell Yu of his plans and how he plans to stop at the lake town of Ur, also at a very large rice farm, to eat some rice, seeing that he has not had some rice in a very long while. At the town of Ur, Eiko and she is worried as it has not happened before, seeing he has been gone for a week, and they begin to assure her that he will be back and immediately begin to look for a solution. Then they also wonder why, and the owner informs them that a group of monsters have been blocking the farmers from taking the spices. He also tells them that some group of adventurers went there to try and stop the monsters, but they have not returned, and now Ilwer has sent some more adventurers to come and help them. Suddenly, Nagumo and the 2 girls walk in and begin to argue. Eiko immediately tries to deceive her about his identity, but she tells him to stop lying, and she begins to wonder what has happened to him, and holds him as he tries to leave. Yu tells her to stop bothering him, and Eiko begins to wonder who she is and tells her to mind her business as she is trying to talk to Nagumo. Yu looks at her and tells her they both introduce themselves, and she reveals that Nagumo kissed her, making Eiko angry and red all over, and why he is behaving in such a way and manner that they cannot understand. After he finishes his food, he tells them that he is not ready to explain what has happened to him or tell them what will happen. But if any of them gets in his way, she immediately heats him inside her room, and she begins to wonder how he got in. He then tells her that he wants to. Nagumo continues to head to his destination, and they begin to talk a while, and they see that Eiko has rest next to him. On hearing this, she too becomes jealous and begins to wonder why she has to sit close to him and not to him and the others. They arrive at their destination, and Nagumo releases some drone-like objects to help him with his search, and he calls them Ornis, and he begins to see some part of the mountain, and discovers something very disturbing. He goes to look at what they have seen, and he sees a huge footprint track, and he deduces that it has been caused by. Tells them that he can sense someone behind the waterfall, and immediately tells Yu to part the water, making the rest of the rescue team amazed at what she has done. They see a cave and go into it, and Nagumo sees Will and tells him that the head of the Adventurers Guild has sent him to rescue him, and Will begins to tell them about how they were attacked. Nagumo begins to defend the girls from its attack. Yu decides to support him with the help of Shia to stop the monster. Will ignore his sorry ass. He begins to use his weapons to take down the dragon, but he sees that it is of no